Hello and welcome to National Focus. I'm Darrell Titt. In the headlines, Minister for Finance to deliver 2020-2021 National Budget Address on July 28. A student of the St. Martin's Primary School has topped the Grade 6 National Assessment Exams and 2020-2021 National Budget to foster small business development. Details of these headline stories and more when we return. Welcome back. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, has announced that the 2020-2021 National Budget Address will be delivered on July 28, 2020. This as the third meeting of the first session of the 10th Parliament gets underway at the House of Assembly on that day. Prime Minister Skerrit says the budget will be taking into consideration the challenges faced globally as a result of COVID-19. The Prime Minister says that the pandemic has seriously affected the local economy.
We've never had this in our lifetime with our country's borders completely closed, the entire world borders completely closed, movement, hotels shut down, restaurants shut down, barbershops, churches. This has certainly affected every single citizen, every sector of our economy, the global economy, certainly. We try to reopen our borders very cautiously, very carefully, because we really can't afford in this country and in the Caribbean for another national shutdown. That would be disastrous. And this is why we've been very careful with the reopening over the borders. To our citizens and to our residents.
Prime Minister Skerrit describes the budget address as one that will be exciting amidst the challenges. The Finance Minister says that in this year's budget, an initiative will be launched to assist small business development.
Many small and medium-sized businesses keep complaining that they do not have access to financing, and those who do, it's expensive, and they cannot afford it. And small and medium-sized businesses are critical to the continued survival of the economy and creation of jobs and so on. So we're going to be launching a 3-year program of financing to small businesses that will also include the passage of legislation to create the legal framework for the operation of small businesses where concessions are concerned, fiscal incentives are concerned, and recognition to the small business sector in our country. So we'll be launching a 3-year, $30 million initiative for the small businesses in Dominica. And those funds will be lent to the small business owner at 1%.
Aniela Birmingham of the St. Martin's Primary School has topped this year's Grade 6 National Assessment Exams. The Ministry of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training, and National Excellence held a press conference on Monday to release the results. Octavia Prosper has more in this report.
The St. Martin Primary, St. Luke's Primary, and the St. John's Primary School are amongst the top 5 schools in this year's Grade 6 National Assessment. Minister for Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training, and National Excellence, Honorable Octavia Alfred, says despite the drastic changes which were made to mitigate against the spread of COVID-19, she is proud of the students' accomplishments.
This year, collaboration among stakeholders was an obvious display, as together we adapted to the many changes imposed on the delivery of education by COVID-19. The just concluded school term has been a difficult one for all of us. I understand the uncertainty and anxiety experienced by students and their parents as we move to online learning during the pandemic. Yet, our students persevere and will be able to reap the results of their hard work as they move on to secondary school.
Meantime, top student Miss Anila Birmingham of the St. Martin Primary School says her success in the examinations heavily relied on self-discipline and her passion for reading.
With the COVID-19, it was kind of challenging, especially with the online learning, but I believe with the help of my parents, teachers, and knowing that I wasn't the only one going through this, it really helped me to not really change and for me to continue what I'm doing. Reading helped me because some children that don't like to read, they don't really like to study, but I find joy in reading my books, and reading really helped me in English and comprehension, one of the top subjects.
Ms. Birmingham shared a few words of encouragement to other students who wish to thrive at the national assessment.
My advice would be not to waste your time. You have to study your book, not just wait until the exam is coming close for you to start to study and take things seriously.
Mr. Ambrose Birmingham, father of top scholar, encouraged other parents to show interest in their children's studies and ensure that they make the necessary sacrifices when needed.
Be there for your children. It doesn't matter how tired you are, she needs something, you help. No matter how broke you may feel you are this month, you have to leave something behind. Assist your child. I mean, it's your job, your responsibility to make sure that your child have what she needs, what they need to move forward. And it doesn't take much. I mean, pay half of your light bill, buy her a book. She needs it. Because next month she doesn't need the same book. You will have the money that you will put on your light bill. You have to do what you have to do. I mean, it's hard economically, it's hard, and you have to make sacrifices. You have to be there for your children.
Principal of the St. Martin Primary School, Mrs. Brunette Morrow, gave details of the school's performance in this year's national assessment.
We got a total of 13 scholarships and 18 bursaries out of our 90 students who wrote the exam. It has been a very challenging year for our students, starting with the end of April up until the exams, the day of the exams itself. And so I am really happy with how our students have done.
Miss Serena Harris of the St. Luke's Primary School, who emerged second on the island, says she used her time at home during the COVID-19 to focus on her studies.
Well, it affected me in a way that I lost contact with my friends, and I was lonely, but I had to manage alone, but I managed. It was good because I had less distractions at home, unlike at school where children are shouting and being noisy, so it helped me to be more focused. Work hard and study a lot if they want to achieve that goal. And it takes a lot of hard work, but in the end, you will see good results.
Mrs. Catherine Samuel Harris says her daughter's success was not only self-motivated, but was due to the hard work of the principal and staff of the St. Luke's Primary School.
She is generally an independent worker, and she is self-motivated, so she's intrinsically motivated. She has been like that for some time, because she started reading very early. Before going to primary school, she was already reading, and I saw her potential from there, and we worked with her continuously. I'd also like to thank her school, obviously, acting as a family, as a support system for her, a very welcoming environment, and I think that contributed towards it. COVID-19 really didn't have an impact on her per se. On the contrary, it gave her even more of a sense of independence.
Grade 6 teacher of the St. Luke's Primary School, Mrs. Colleen Prelui, says the restrictions during the COVID-19 pandemic did not affect the students as the school saw an increase in its academic performance this year.
We have gotten 3 scholarships and 1 bursary. Last year we only had 1 scholarship, that's it. So we did much better this year. So we're hoping that for the year we can keep on improving and putting up our numbers of scholarship. We did not stop. So we went home the Friday. From Monday we were on the ball going. So we used Google Classroom. We studied it one time we worked on it during the weekend. So the Monday the children were already doing work. We met with them on Google Meets. This is something where we can see the children like face to face but at their homes. So we had teaching like it is in a normal classroom. So we continue everything as normal. So it did not stop or there was a lapse, no. So we continue engaging them in all different ways that we can possible.
The 3 other top performers are Kennelly Barron of the St. John's Primary School, Deneri Samuel of the St. Mary's Academy, and Therese Leblanc of the Convent Preparatory School. Octavia Prosper for the Government Information Service.
And of course, all of us here at the Government Information Service congratulates all the students in this year's Grade 6 National Assessment exams. In more news, 12 health centers are being built across the island to complement the vision of a climate-resilient, modernized health system. Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt says the Roseau Health Center must be included in this plan.
I want to say to the residents of the city of Roseau that we will be constructing a new health center for the city. The Roseau Infant School was never built for a health center. It has served us well, but we can no longer have it in the third decade of the 21st century. And of course, we'll address some of the challenges that are currently being experienced, because having people under the trees and on the side of the road waiting to see a doctor certainly is unacceptable. And we take responsibility for this, and we shall fix this.
Meantime, Minister for Health, Wellness and New Health Investment, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, says 8 of the 12 health centers are nearing completion.
There's a total of 12 health centers to be built. At the moment, we have 8 of them nearing completion. Vacars will be completed. Yours will be completed in June 29th. Penville on October 28th. That's of this year. Wesley will be August 19th. Margot, I know is June 29th. The Maho one will complete on 14th of August. Georgetown complete 29th. So Georgetown is complete actually. And Bellevue Chopin, June 29th, that's fine as well. And Bagatelle maybe September 15th actually, Bagatelle. So these are the 8 ones.
The construction of an additional 4 health centers will commence following the conclusion of negotiations for the purchase of lands.
The other 4 that I didn't mention, which is Ansdime, Soufriere, Newtown, and we have Coliho. We're just working on the acquisition of land for these, and we're pretty much on our way to get this solved. And as soon as this can be resolved, we'll be starting off these.
Minister McIntyre is confident that the completion of these health centers will aid in the level of productivity within the healthcare system.
It's more than just a structure, and it's more than just the healthcare professional. Granted, the structure makes it a more comfortable environment for the healthcare professionals to function under. But let alone this, the administration is a very integral part of this. So not only administration at the hospitals, but administration at the health centers as well, and within the district, because that's the foundation, that's the basis where everything starts from. So with all of this accountability that we've been speaking about, the improved structures, and the whole, just the attitude of the staff and their comfort level, I think when you put everything together, yes, we can definitely have a better healthcare system. That will include the primary healthcare as well. So it's not just the tertiary and the secondary care, but the primary healthcare, the structures part, the professionals part, everything put together, I think we'll definitely get a better service.
The minister says the provision of these new health facilities will also assist with the reduction of accommodation costs for medical practitioners.
The cost to the government of providing accommodation for the healthcare professionals within the districts who might not be from the districts is alarming. So with these health centers and the accommodation, that should solve a major problem for us, definitely.
The health centers were all funded through the Citizenship by Investment program. In more news, the Ministry of Blue and Green Economy, Agriculture and National Food Security has warned farmers and other locals about 2 destructive insects which are attacking crops in Dominica. The insects are attacking plants such as mangoes, breadfruit, and avocado. Head of the Plant Protection and Quarantine Unit, Mr. Nelson Lavelle, says the change in Dominica's ecosystem post-Hurricane Maria caused an increase in pest population in Dominica.
Post-Hurricane Maria, we had a very serious drastic change to our ecosystem. And therefore, a lot of the population of our natural enemies would have been depleted, and hence you would see the increase of pest populations around the island. Many farmers and backyard owners are complaining now that they see so many of their leaves blackened. And that is not because of a disease, but it's because of a pest. That the scale insects and the mealybugs and so forth, they excrete a sugary substance which attracts a fungus that causes the leaf to be blackened.
Mr. Lavelle says the ministry is currently breeding other insects to feed on the pest as a solution to assist with the vast depletion of Dominica's forest species.
The challenge is a lot of the pests that I mentioned, they are polyphagous, meaning that they feed on numerous plants, different plants, and a lot of the plants are forest species. So a localized management on a farm may not be very effective because the surrounding forest would be infested with the pest. Now, it's not feasible to go out in the forest with a mist blower and spray a chemical, but it's very practical to rear a natural enemy, release it, it moves by itself, it flies, it finds its food, it hunts. And so that is the more practical approach that we're using, the more scientific approach that we're using. And so this is one of the activities that we're actually pushing forward with to sort of try to reduce the pest pressure in our ecosystem.
Positive results are expected within the next few months following the rearing of these natural enemies.
What we're doing is we actually rearing the natural enemies in these small bowls, and in the future, within the next couple of weeks, we'll start releasing them in the wild. Those will go out there and feed and possibly reproduce and increase the population out in the field. So part of the thing is which is very critical is temperature control. So we're using the air conditioning unit to maintain the temperature at 25 degrees Celsius. And another aspect is the humidity, relative humidity. So we have this humidifier which puts humidity into the lab and maintains those at a condition that they can actually reproduce and they could control.
Mr. Laville says the unit is also in the process of formulating artificial diets.
So presently, we only use the pest to rear the insect, but we're in the process now of actually formulating artificial diets. This bowl has another pest which is called the croton scale, and there are adults in there. If you look carefully, you'll see a black dot on the twig, and that is one of the natural enemies that is being reared and used to control the croton scale.
You're watching National Focus. More when we return.
Scary! Everything just shaking and shaking and making big creaky noises.
Earthquakes, big and small, take place in the Caribbean at least 10 times a year.
The dishes rattling and falling and breaking. Then Vonnie started to scream.
All I could think to do was shout, "Get outside, get out!"
Earthquakes, hazards, take control, reduce your loss. If an earthquake hits, what can you do? Get down, get under an item of furniture like a table. Hold on and stay there until the quake passes. Find out lots more about earthquakes and other hazards at your local disaster office. A message from your National Disaster Office and SEDERA.
The Office of Disaster Management, ODM, continues its preparation for the 2020 hurricane season. National Disaster Coordinator Mr. Fitzroy Pascal says the ODM is visiting various communities around the island to train and assist people with their disaster management plans.
The ODM is the secretariat to the National Emergency Planning Organization. It's just the secretariat, so we just have a small staff. We cannot do it alone, so we are currently engaging the various communities, and we are strengthening the communities to assist us in disaster management, not just preparedness, but all the 4 phases of the cycle. So at present, we are going into the communities and engaging the persons in the communities, providing the necessary trainings for them as we speak. We have gone into the Laplin district and also the Castlebruce district, providing training in terms of shelter management and also basic radio communication.
Mr. Pascal says since the passage of Hurricane Maria in 2017, the ODM has hosted numerous community emergency response team training programs around the island. The ODM also continues to engage all relevant stakeholders to assist in disaster management efforts.
We have also done CIT, Community Emergency Response Training, and we have done that island-wide, and to date we have some 400 persons trained in that disaster management training. We also engage in the first responders, the police, the fire, and the health personnel in a national emergency response team. Since they're the first responders, we thought it best to bring them together and form a team so that they can respond to situations. So the ODM is not operating in isolation. We are engaging everyone, all stakeholders, to assist in the disaster management efforts on island.
Mr. Pascal says the ODM has made significant improvements to their disaster preparedness and management plans due to lessons learned from the passage of Hurricane Maria. These include a search and rescue team and building resilient shelters, among others.
During Maria, coming out of Maria, and also Erica, we looked at 6 areas. We looked at security, we looked at shelter management, we looked at search and rescue, communications, we looked at access, and we looked at relief. So lessons learned going forward in terms of security. As you know, the police have now put this curfew in order that whenever there's a pending event, we put out the curfew so that we will reduce the amount of unnecessary persons on the road. In terms of shelter management, we are going towards purposefully built shelters, and we saw the opening of one in Layu recently. There are 2 more to come on stream in the immediate future, which will be at Castle Bruce and Jimit. In terms of search and rescue, I mentioned the National Emergency Response Teams comprising the police, health, and fire. In terms of access, we are pre-positioning equipment all over the island. And in terms of radio communication, as I said, we're going out in the field to get the community people engaged in basic radio communication training. And we're also providing satellite phones for essential personnel.
The Ministry of the Blue and Green Economy, Agriculture and National Food Security has continued to export large quantities of local produce despite the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Honorable Fidel Grant, who is the minister responsible for the Blue and Green Economy, Agriculture and National Food Security, says a recent survey conducted by the ministry shows that traditional crops are being exported regularly.
The ministry recently conducted a survey or did some research in terms of production and what are we producing. You know, as a new minister, I wanted to understand what is the industry doing, how are we doing it, and who is doing it. So I had meetings with Dexia, I had meetings with the Huxers Association, the large exporters. I visited farms, the large holdings, the small holdings. And as it is now, we are traditionally exporting, what we are exporting is the traditional crops. The yams, the cassava, dasheen, green bananas, plantain. But interestingly, during the COVID period, we have seen a spike in terms of ginger and turmeric. You know, so that is an area that the ministry is paying close attention to. There's also a demand for our passion fruit. As it is now, we are exporting it as pulp and in the raw state. But what we have realized that as pulp, you get a better price for your fruit. So these are the areas that in demand and exporting and producing in large quantities at the moment.
The Agriculture Minister says they are currently working with partners in hope of expanding the country's export market to include new crops such as cantaloupe.
As it is now, we have a fully cultivated greenhouse with over 400 cantaloupe plants, which would be ready in about a month's time. I mean, the greenhouse may be 20 feet by 30 feet, and then from that greenhouse, if you are a commercial farmer, you would likely to yield somewhere in the region based on the price of the cantaloupe at the time, between $10,000 and $15,000 from that one greenhouse within 2 to 3 months, because that's the time it takes to yield in terms of the cantaloupe.
And now for your weather update. A low to mid-level trough system will continue to generate occasional cloudiness and a few scattered showers across Dominica and the leewards. Meanwhile, a weak tropical wave is expected to begin affecting the southern windwards. This wave is projected to produce some scattered showers across Dominica. Another tropical wave located in the far eastern tropical Atlantic is expected to approach the area by Friday. Slight to moderate seas are expected during the next 24 hours, with waves up to 5 feet. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. Be sure to follow GIS Dominica on Facebook, YouTube, as well as on Twitter. You can also drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm. From all of us here at the GIS News Production Team, I'm Darrell Titt. Thank you for watching.